I deserve your bonus more than you do. The words hung in the air of my own living room, sharper than the shattered wood of my doorframe. My brother Cole stood there, not 10 feet from me. He was holding a pale green envelope from my company's payroll department, my $40,000 annual bonus. His face wasn't apologetic or frightened. It was a mask of pure, unadulterated entitlement. He had jimmied the lock on my apartment, the one place on earth that was supposed to be mine, and was now standing in the middle of my sanctuary, holding my success in his hand and claiming it as his own. Forks didn't freeze. There was no dinner party, no audience to gasp in shock. There was only the low hum of my refrigerator, the scent of the lemon cleaner I'd used that morning, and the profound, echoing silence between his audacity and my response. He smiled, a lazy, confident smirk that he'd been perfecting since he was 7 years old. "You don't need it, Tatum," he said, his voice casual as if discussing the weather. "You're single. You don't have a family to support. I do." My name is Tatum Reyes, and for 27 years I was the invisible wallet of my family. I was the fixer, the emergency contact, the quiet provider who was never quite good enough. My successes were minimized, my struggles were my own fault, and my income was treated as a communal resource I was selfishly hoarding. They thought I didn't see the pattern. They thought I didn't keep records. They didn't know that for years I had been building a case inside my own mind, documenting every transaction, every insult, every quiet humiliation. They didn't know I was prepared. And in that moment, seeing him stand there, having violated the only safe space I'd ever built for myself, they were about to find out. If you've ever been the family ATM, the one they call in a crisis but never for a celebration, you know what I'm talking about. If you've ever had to choose between your own sanity and the toxic bonds of family, hit that like button, because this story is for you. They thought I would take it because I always had. They were wrong. The pattern began so early I barely recognized it as a pattern. It was just life. Cole was the golden child, the one for whom the rules were merely suggestions. I was the responsible one, the one for whom the rules were ironclad laws. When we were children, this manifested in small ways. He'd break a vase, and I'd get grounded for being in the room where it happened. He'd fail a test, and my parents would hire him a tutor. I'd get a B+, and my father would ask why it wasn't an A. They called it holding me to a higher standard. I now know they were just holding me to a different one. The financial disparity started in high school. My parents, a middle school principal and a dental hygienist, were comfortable, not wealthy. They made it clear that college would be a challenge, for me at least. They sat me down at the start of my junior year, spreadsheets printed out, their faces grim. "Tatum," my mother said, her voice laced with that performative seriousness she used, "we can contribute about $5,000 a year. The rest you'll need to cover with scholarships and loans. We expect you to work part-time?" I did. I worked 30 hours a week at a diner. I studied until 2 in the morning. I wrote essays for every scholarship I could find, big or small. I graduated high school with a 4.2 GPA and a full ride to the State University for computer science. My parents took the credit at a graduation party they threw. "She gets her work ethic from us," my father announced to the family, beaming. I remember standing there, my feet aching from a double shift I'd just finished, and feeling nothing but a hollow echo where pride should have been. 2 years later, it was Cole's turn. There was no spreadsheet meeting for him. There was no talk of loans or part-time jobs. They cashed out a portion of their retirement to pay for his tuition at a private liberal arts college that cost $60,000 a year. His major was exploratory studies. When I asked my mother why the standard was so different, her face tightened. "Cole needs more support, Tatum. He's a creative soul. You've always been so independent." It wasn't independence. It was necessity. I was independent because I was never given the option to be dependent. He was dependent because he was never required to be anything else. He lasted 3 semesters before dropping out, citing a lack of intellectual stimulation. He came home with a 1.9 GPA and $30,000 of their money vaporized. They threw him a welcome home party. Then came the cars. On my 16th birthday, my parents handed me a crisp envelope. Inside was a city bus schedule with the relevant routes highlighted. "Happy birthday," my dad said. "Responsibility is the greatest gift." I saved for 3 years, and at 19, bought a 10-year-old Honda Civic with 140,000 miles on it. The transmission was iffy, and the air conditioning was a distant memory, but it was mine. I paid for the car, the insurance, the gas, the repairs. On Cole's 16th birthday, a brand new silver sedan was parked in the driveway with a giant red bow on it. My mother's eyes were filled with tears of joy. "He just looked so happy," she'd said later, as if his happiness was a precious commodity that justified any expense, while mine was irrelevant. As we entered our 20s, the dynamic calcified. I graduated, got a good job, then a better one. I moved into a tiny apartment with 2 roommates and started aggressively paying down my student loans, the ones I'd needed for living expenses. I built my career quietly, methodically. I became a DevOps engineer, a field my parents didn't understand and therefore couldn't brag about. To them, I did something with computers. My success was abstract, invisible. Cole's failures, however, were tangible, dramatic, and always in need of a bailout. And somehow, my invisible success was always positioned as the solution to his very visible failures. The first major ask came when I was 24. Cole had a brilliant idea for a business, a drop shipping company that sold artisanal, ethically sourced dog toys. He had a logo, a catchy name, and a business plan that looked like it was written by a child. He needed $15,000 for initial inventory and web development. He asked our parents, who, of course, turned to me. "Tatum, you're doing so well," my mother started, her voice syrupy over the phone. "Your brother just needs a little push to get started. It's an investment in his future." "He has no experience in e-commerce, Mom, or retail, or business at all." "Don't be so negative," she'd snapped. "Family backs family. Always has. You have all that money in savings? What are you even saving for?" I felt the familiar heat of frustration rise in my chest. I was saving for a down payment on a small condo. I was saving for my own retirement. I was saving for a future that I was building, brick by painful brick. But saying so would only brand me as selfish, so I gave in. I wrote the check. I transferred the $15,000. A month later, I saw the pictures on social media. Cole and his girlfriend living it up in Miami. Pictures of them on a yacht, at expensive clubs, all geotagged and posted without a hint of shame. The artisanal dog toy website never materialized. When I confronted him, he laughed it off. "You have to network, Tate. Make connections." When I pressed him, he got angry. "It's my money now. You gave it to me. Stop trying to control my life." I went to my parents. My mother sighed, a theatrical put-upon sound. "He just needed to blow off some steam, honey. The pressure was getting to him. Let it go, for family." My father, as usual, just stared at the television, his silence a form of passive permission. I didn't let it go. I documented it. I saved the screenshots, the bank transfer confirmation. I put it in a file. The file was getting thick. Every time he moved apartments, I was the one co-signing the lease because his credit was shot. Every time he was between jobs, I was the one covering his rent because my parents were a little tight this month. For 2 years straight, I paid $800 a month directly to his landlord, a secret subsidy to maintain his lifestyle. That was $19,200. It went into the file. Every time he had a financial emergency, my phone would ring. His car needed a new transmission. $2,500. He had an unexpected tax bill because he'd been working gig economy jobs and hadn't saved a dime. $4,000. His girlfriend's dog needed emergency surgery for swallowing one of the few artisanal dog toys he'd actually managed to acquire. $3,200 charged to my credit card over the phone at 2 a.m. He promised to pay me back. He never did. It all went into the file. The accumulation of grievances was a slow poison. It wasn't just the money. It was the complete and utter lack of acknowledgement. It was the way my achievements were treated as windfalls that belonged to the collective, while his failures were personal tragedies requiring community support. I got a promotion to a senior engineer role at a major tech firm. My salary jumped to $195,000 a year. I told my parents over dinner. My mother's only comment was, "Oh, that's nice, dear. Cole is thinking about getting his real estate license. Isn't that exciting?" My father nodded, chewing his pot roast. Good money in real estate. I was a ghost at their table, a provider, an ATM with a name. The only time they saw me, truly saw me, was when they needed something. The praise, the excitement, the emotional investment, that was all reserved for Cole. He was the project. I was the budget. The casual cruelty was relentless. At family gatherings, my uncle would joke, "Here comes Tatum, hide your wallets," and everyone would laugh. My mother would join in, the giggling enforcer. Her laughter was the anesthetic that made the wound feel like it wasn't so deep. My brother would smirk, basking in the attention. My father, the silent enabler, would just look down at his plate, meticulously cutting his food into smaller and smaller pieces. His silence was the loudest sound in the room. It was permission. It was endorsement. I tried to set boundaries. I tried to say no. The year I turned 26, I decided to stop the automatic rent payments. I called Cole and told him that the subsidy was ending in 2 months. The rage that came through the phone was startling. He accused me of being jealous of his new girlfriend. He said I was trying to sabotage his life. He called me a bitter, money-hoarding spinster. Then he hung up on me. An hour later, my mother called. She didn't ask for my side of the story. She launched directly into a tirade. "How could you do this to him, Tatum? He's finally getting on his feet. You know how sensitive he is. You're being dramatic. You have so much, and you refuse to share a tiny piece of it. We did not raise you to be this selfish." "I have shared, Mom," I said, my voice shaking with a cold fury. "I have shared over $60,000 in the last 3 years alone." "Don't throw numbers around," she scoffed. "It's tacky. This is about family, not accounting. Family backs family." I caved. I always caved. The guilt, the pressure, the sheer exhaustion of the fight. It was easier to just pay. It was easier to stay quiet to keep the peace. But the peace was a lie. It was just the absence of their yelling. The war inside me was raging. Every time I authorized a transfer, every time I said yes when I meant no, a small piece of my self-respect crumbled away. I started to pull away. I stopped going to every family dinner. I let their calls go to voicemail more often. I was building a life they couldn't touch. I worked hard. I saved aggressively. I finally bought my own place, a 1-bedroom condo in a secure building downtown. It was my fortress of solitude. Every piece of furniture, every book on the shelf, every picture on the wall was mine. I had earned it. It was the one place where I was not the invisible wallet, but just Tatum. I didn't tell them when I received my annual performance review. I didn't tell them my boss called my work foundational to the company's new platform. I didn't tell them I was getting a $40,000 bonus. It was my secret, my victory, a tangible symbol of my success, a success that had nothing to do with them. The check was mailed to my apartment. I saw the shipping notification and felt a thrill of anticipation. It was scheduled to arrive on a Friday. I planned to take the check to the bank, deposit it, and then treat myself to a weekend away. A quiet celebration for one. That Friday I left work a little early. The air was crisp, the sky a brilliant blue. I felt light, almost giddy. I walked into the lobby of my building, collected my mail, and headed for the elevator. My bonus check wasn't in the mailbox. I figured it was a delivery delay and thought nothing of it. When I got to my floor, I saw it instantly. The door to my apartment was slightly ajar, a sliver of blackness against the clean white hallway. My heart hammered against my ribs. I crept closer and saw the marks, the deep, splintered gouges in the doorframe around the deadbolt. Someone had forced their way in. My first thought was a robbery. I backed away slowly, my hand fumbling in my purse for my phone. My thumb was shaking as I unlocked it, ready to dial 911. But then I heard a noise from inside, a familiar lazy cough. It wasn't a stranger. It was Cole. My blood ran cold. I stood frozen in the hallway listening. I heard the rustle of paper. He was in my office, going through my desk. The violation was so profound, so personal, it stole the air from my lungs. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was targeted. This was family. I don't know what possessed me, but I pushed the door open. I needed to see it. I needed to confront the reality of what he was. He was standing by my desk, my mail piled in front of him. He'd already opened several envelopes. And in his hand was the pale green one from payroll. He looked up, and for a split second I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by that infuriating, confident smirk. He held up the check as if it were a prize he'd won. "Hey, Tate," he said, his voice dripping with false cheer. "Look what I found." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply looked at him, at the splintered door of the home I had built, at the check I had earned in his hand. I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, nothing. It was a strange, terrifying, and liberating emptiness. The emotional well had finally run dry. "What are you doing here, Cole?" My voice was flat, devoid of any inflection. "Came to borrow some sugar," he joked, waving the check. "Figured I'd save you a trip to the bank." And that's when he said the words. The words that severed the final, frayed thread of obligation that tied me to him, to them. "I deserve your bonus more than you do." He launched into his reasoning, the twisted logic of the perpetually entitled. He and his girlfriend were thinking of buying a house. This would be a great down payment. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have kids. I didn't have any real expenses. My life, in his eyes, was a frivolous series of wants, while his was a desperate list of needs. My success was an accident of luck that I was hoarding, and it was his right, no, his duty, to redistribute it more equitably. Something inside me snapped. Not loud, not dramatic, just a clean, quiet break. It was the sound of a lock clicking into place. A final, irreversible decision being made in the silent circuitry of my brain. I had spent my entire life trying to earn their love, trying to buy their respect, trying to keep a peace that was never real. I was done. I stayed calm. There was nothing to add. He had said it all. He had shown me exactly who he was, and I believed him. "Okay," I said, my voice unnervingly quiet. I turned around without another word and walked back out into the hallway. I pulled the door closed behind me, the damaged lock clicking uselessly. I could hear him laughing from inside, a short, sharp bark of victory. He thought he'd won. He thought I was leaving in defeat, that I was going to let it go, for family. I walked 20 feet down the hall to the alcove by the elevators. I leaned against the cool wall, took a deep breath, and slid my phone from my pocket. My hands were perfectly steady. My thumb moved slowly across the screen, a deliberate, measured motion. I didn't call my mother. I didn't call my father. I dialed 911. The operator's voice was calm and professional. 911, what is your emergency? I'd like to report a burglary in progress, I said, my own voice a perfect mirror of her dispassionate tone. My name is Tatum Reyes. My address is 1250 West Elm Street, apartment 14B. The intruder is my brother. He is still inside my apartment. I gave her his name, his description. I told her he was unarmed but in possession of property he had stolen from me. I stayed on the line, answering her questions in a quiet monotone. From down the hall I could hear Cole still moving around in my apartment. The arrogance of it was breathtaking. He truly believed there would be no consequences. That was the last time he would be right about anything concerning me. The police arrived in under 4 minutes. 2 uniformed officers stepped out of the elevator, their faces serious. I met them, my phone still pressed to my ear. I identified myself and pointed toward my door. "He's in there," I said. "His name is Cole Reyes." He forced the lock. One of the officers, a woman with sharp, intelligent eyes, looked at me. "Do you want to wait here in the hall, ma'am?" I nodded. "I do." I didn't want to see his face. I didn't want to hear his excuses. I didn't want to be in the room for the drama he was sure to create. The cut was clean. I had made my decision, and the rest was just procedure. They knocked first, a loud, authoritative rap on the wood. "Police, open up." The silence from inside was sudden and absolute. The faint sound of music cut off. Then a frantic scrambling noise. A moment later, the door creaked open. I could hear Cole's voice, high-pitched and incredulous. "Officers? What's going on? This is my sister's apartment." "Sir, we received a call about a break-in. Is your sister here?" "No, she just left. She asked me to wait here for a package. It's a total misunderstanding." The lie was so smooth, so practiced. How many times had he lied like that to get out of trouble? How many times had our parents smoothed it over for him? I stepped forward from the alcove into their line of sight. I held up my phone. "I'm his sister," I said, my voice carrying clearly down the hall. "I did not ask him to be here. He broke my lock and entered my home without my permission. He is trespassing." Cole's face, visible in the sliver of the open door, went from pale to ashen. The smirk was gone, replaced by a slack-jawed horror. The look of a man who had pushed a button his entire life expecting a treat and had just received a powerful electric shock. The officers escorted him out in handcuffs a few minutes later. He was shouting now, the facade of calm completely shattered. "Tatum, you can't do this. I'm your brother. Tell them to stop. Tell them it's a mistake." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply looked at him as they led him toward the elevator. I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, nothing. The space inside me that he and my family had occupied for so long was now just empty. And the emptiness felt like peace. As they put him in the elevator, he turned his head and screamed one last thing at me. "Mom is going to kill you for this." He was right about that. The barrage started before the police had even finished taking my statement. My mother called first. I let it go to voicemail. Then my father. Voicemail. Then my aunt, my uncle. A cascade of flying monkeys summoned to defend the golden child. My mother's voicemail was a masterpiece of narcissistic rage. "Tatum, I don't know what kind of sick game you're playing, but you call off the police right now. You're destroying this family over a stupid check. Your brother made a mistake. You fix this. You fix this now, or you're no longer my daughter." The texts were even worse. "Mom, they arrested him. They put your brother in a police car. How could you? Mom, he could lose his job. His life will be ruined. Is that what you want?" "Dad, your mother is hysterical. Please call this off." Cole, from his girlfriend's phone. "You will regret this for the rest of your life, you cold-hearted bee." I sat on the floor of my violated apartment, the splintered doorframe a testament to the lie I had been living. I read the messages, one after another, and felt the last vestiges of guilt wither and die. They weren't angry that he had committed a crime. They were angry that he was facing consequences. My role was not to be a victim. My role was to absorb the damage and protect the perpetrator. I wasn't losing a family. I was losing a burden. With a strange sense of clarity, I blocked them all. My mother, my father, my brother's girlfriend, my aunt, my uncle. Each press of the block button was a quiet declaration of independence. I packed an overnight bag, called a locksmith to install a new, high-security deadbolt, and checked into a hotel for the night. The silence in that anonymous room was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. The next day, I got a call from a Detective Miller. He was the one assigned to the case. "Miss Reyes," he said, his voice grave. "We processed your brother last night. When we did the standard search of his belongings, we found some things you should know about. He had several pieces of your mail in his backpack, not just from yesterday." My stomach went cold. "What kind of mail?" "Tax documents, bank statements, and 3 uncashed checks from the U.S. Treasury. It looks like stimulus payments and a tax refund from the last 2 years. We ran the check numbers. They were all mobile deposited into a bank account under his name." The room started to spin. I sat down heavily on the edge of the hotel bed. "How much?" I whispered. "Just over $23,000, the detective said. "He'd been having your mail forwarded to a P.O. box without your knowledge. This wasn't a one-time mistake, Miss Reyes. This was a calculated long-term fraud. And because it involves the U.S. mail, it's a federal offense." Burglary was one thing, but mail theft? Federal charges? The ground had just fallen out from beneath Cole's feet. The consequences were no longer about a family dispute or a plea for leniency. This was the United States government now. An entity far less susceptible to my mother's guilt trips. The legal process was slow and agonizing, but I remained detached from it. My only involvement was providing a victim impact statement. My parents mortgaged their house to hire the best lawyer they could afford. The lawyer tried to paint Cole as a troubled young man who made a foolish mistake, buckling under the pressure of living in his successful sister's shadow. I was asked to testify. I sat in the witness box, calm and collected. The defense attorney tried to corner me. "Miss Reyes, isn't it true you've given your brother large sums of money in the past?" "Yes." "Tens of thousands of dollars by your own admission?" "Yes." "So why, on this particular day, did you decide to call the police over one check? A check you admit you didn't even really need?" I looked at the jury. I looked at the judge. Then I looked at my brother, who refused to meet my eyes. "It was never about the money," I said, my voice clear and steady. It was about the lock on my door, the one place I was supposed to be safe. He didn't just try to take my money, he took my security. He broke into my home and told me I didn't have a right to what I had earned. The pattern of him taking and me giving was one I had allowed, but the moment he shattered my door, he shattered that pattern. The decision to call the police wasn't about a check. It was about ending the abuse. The prosecutor later presented the evidence of the mail theft, the fraudulent P.O. box application. The bank statement showing the deposits into Cole's account. The sheer, premeditated gall of it all. The jury was out for less than 2 hours. Guilty. On all charges. Because of the federal mail theft charges, the sentence was harsh. 5 years in a federal penitentiary. The day of his sentencing, my mother screamed at me outside the courthouse, her face contorted with grief and rage. "I hope you're happy. You've sent your own brother to prison. You have no family left." "You're right," I said quietly. "I don't." And I walked away. The first few months were a strange mix of relief and phantom limb pain. I was so used to the constant anxiety, the next impending financial crisis, the next manipulative phone call. The silence they left behind was vast, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was a peaceful one. I used the bonus money, which was returned to me as evidence, as a down payment on a new condo in a different city. A fresh start. I sold the old place. Too many ghosts. Over the next few years, I watched their slow rot from a great distance. Without my income to supplement their retirement and bail out Cole, my parents' finances collapsed. They had to sell their house to pay his legal bills. They moved into a small rented apartment. My mother had to go back to work, taking night shifts as a hygienist. My father got a job driving for a rideshare service. The regret was heavier than any debt. They had sacrificed their future for the son who had no future to offer them in return. They had bet on the wrong horse, and the horse had finally been put down. I never spoke to them again. I heard through a cousin that Cole got out of prison after serving 4 years. He lives with my parents now, a convicted felon in his 30s, unable to find meaningful work. Their lives are a prison of their own making, the 3 of them trapped in a small apartment, suffocating under the weight of their choices. I, on the other hand, am thriving. My new home is quiet and full of light. My career has flourished. I am seen and respected for my work, for my mind, for my contributions. I am no one's wallet. I am no one's emergency plan. Sometimes, when the sun streams through my window in the morning and I'm drinking my coffee in the peaceful silence, I think about that day. The splintered door, the look on his face, the cold, clean click of the decision in my mind. I never regretted a single second. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Respect is not an entitlement. Loyalty, true loyalty, earns its place at your table. It doesn't break down your door and demand to be fed. If you've ever had to learn that lesson the hard way, know that you are not alone. And know this: choosing yourself is not selfish. It is survival. Some doors have to be closed, locked, and bolted, not because you hate the people on the other side, but because you finally love the person on yours. Protecting your peace matters more than protecting a toxic definition of family.